Let's react to the Associated Press poll rankings following a raucous rivalry week. What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. If this is your first time watching the #1 college football show, welcome. Please, while you're here, if you like what you see, hit the like button on this segment and subscribe to the channel and ring the bell so you don't miss any of the uploads that we do here, because I'm pretty frequent. That's to say, we have a lively discussion here about all things college football every single day, 365 days a year. That is one of the reasons why I love to call this show the #1 college football show. So today, let's start with an obvious look. Where the hell is Ohio State going to rank after what has to be an epic collapse on their part at home to an unranked and unwashed Michigan Wolverines football team that finished just 7-5, but was able to knock off the #2 Ohio State Buckeyes, according to the College Football Playoff Selection Committee rankings last week, forcing the Buckeyes to fold, to crumble like a soft-baked cookie. So, Ohio State drops all the way down to #7 following its second loss of the season. Its first loss came to #1 Oregon, who is the only undefeated team left in the sport and has an opportunity to become just the 6th team to run the table in the college football playoff era through the postseason undefeated. Of course, one of those teams is Central Florida, and we're talking about really just the second team west of the Mississippi, thinking about Baton Rouge and LSU being the only other team. Clemson, Alabama, Georgia, those all on the other side of this thing. Ohio State didn't run the table in 2014, as you very well know. They lost to Va-Tech, but they came back to win that thing in 2014, which is kind of what I think Ohio State fans are wishing for. I still believe that there's no salve you're going to be able to put on a 4th consecutive loss to Michigan, given all of the pomp and circumstance going into this, given the kind of money and the kind of expertise that was allowed to be thrown into this mix, right, for Ryan Day. He gets to hire his mentor in Chip Kelly, who I think called one of the worst games of his entire career against Michigan, continuing to run a zone stretch play that really wasn't working, not forcing the ball down the field. And then Will Howard also picked a really bad day to have his worst day as an Ohio State quarterback. No targets to Jeremiah Smith in the second half, and a defense that, for the most part, did its job. Right? I know that Khalil Mullings had 32 carries, but it was for 116 yards, not like he had Ashton Janty numbers up there. And that defense has to feel some kind of way after giving up just 13 points, but can't get 14 points out of its offense. To say nothing of, all your kicker got to do is make 2 field goals. And he shanked both because I think the moment was just too big for him. It is the second time in the last 4 years that I've watched, 3 years, that I've watched an Ohio State kicker just not have it when they needed it. Once against Georgia, and now against Michigan. Sharon Moore and the Wolverines get to continue this streak. Sharon Moore is now 2-0 against Ohio State. Bo Schembechler didn't do that. Jim Harbaugh didn't do that. Lloyd Carr did, ended up winning a national championship as head coach. And you know what? Sharon Moore might be building towards something with Bryce Underwood jumping in the bandwagon, the Bryce Underwood era, off to a really good start if you're a Michigan Wolverine. But should Ohio State be ranked at #7 after its second loss? I think so. I think it's a better football team than Southern Methodist. It's certainly proved it's a better football team than Indiana, but I also think that Indiana is still a top 5 team for me. Meanwhile, Penn State gets to move up into #3, and they'll get a chance to play for their first Big Ten championship since 2016 against Oregon, and there's a path to them being the #1 ranked team in the country come Selection Sunday if they can pull off that upset. Texas moves up to #2 with their really awesome defensive dominant win against A&M. I think that they are a worthy match to Georgia. It's about, can you be the kind of program that can do something with that line of scrimmage this time, right? Because we watched that offensive line get bullied by that Georgia defensive front. Now, Kelvin Banks was in a boot to end the game against A&M, and they didn't really need him, but I think they will need him, and he would want to play in this game if at all possible, because it was the worst game that he played. Came against that Georgia defensive front, and Mykel Williams probably made himself a lot of money beating up on him, getting home to Quinn Ewers. Also, Steve Sarkisian's going to come in with a different game plan. We saw him using Arch Manning in the run game inside the red zone against A&M. I think that's a really great way to look at it, but then again, Jalen Walker said, who is Arch Manning to me except the dude that I ran down? You know what I'm saying? So it's not as if they haven't seen that package before, but perhaps Steve Sarkisian is going to have a little bit better understanding of how to get that schemed up for a Georgia defensive front that it looked like has been gettable, and you can get him on the back end certainly here of late. And if Carson Beck is not playing at his absolute best, that is a team that better watch its back in the SEC championship game for a second straight year, but also could lose for a second straight year. Tennessee moves up to 6. They got to love that loss coming to Ohio State. That helps them out tremendously. Notre Dame at 4. I'm fine with that too. SMU has an opportunity. Like, there's a road to SMU winning a national championship, right? They got to beat a Clemson team that I think is pretty good, but they're a match for them. I believe at the quarterback position, that's going to be a lot of fun. SMU's only loss coming to BYU. Doesn't look so good anymore after, BYU didn't make the Big 12 championship game, but still had an outstanding season, winning 10 games, cementing that with a win against Houston last night. Alabama is at 11 behind a number 10 Boise State. I still don't think Boise State is one of the 10 best teams in college football, but they're 11-1. They get to play UNLV. They get to beat up on perhaps a 9-win UNLV, or maybe UNLV gets to steal that top-ranked Group 5 spot, but I don't think that they would. I think you'd have to take a look at who's going to win the American, especially if it's Army. Number 12, Arizona State. They're going to play in the Big 12 championship game after going 3-9 last year. Remarkable turnaround for Kenny Dillingham in that group. I'm excited to see what they can do. It's a fun group. He's a fun head coach. The Sun Devils get to play Iowa State for the championship after Iowa State won 10 games for the first time ever. That's Iowa State, Indiana, winning 10 games for the first time in school history this year. That's pretty friggin' awesome. South Carolina at number 13. I think that's a college football playoff team if we're talking about teams that deserve an invitation. Okay? 7 of the opponents they played were ranked at some point. Their 3 losses are all to ranked opponents. They got 6 wins against ranked opponents. They're a good football team, folks. Like, they're good. So if we're going to have a conversation about it, we need to put Shane Beamer's South Carolina Gamecocks in the mix here, especially ahead of Miami, who is at 10-2, not as good as South Carolina at 9-3. They should be 7-5. They're not. Syracuse came back to beat them. They were up 21-0 on the road, and they let that get out of their hands, right? They had it right there for them. All they got to do, like Ohio State, was win in your end, and they couldn't get that done. Ole Miss at 15. I don't think that team should get in over South Carolina, but it probably would. Iowa State has a chance here. If they don't win the Big 12 championship, I don't think they're getting in. I think we're only getting one team in from the Big 12 this year. BYU at 17 is fine. Clemson at 18, it's also fine because they win the ACC championship game, they're going to get in. UNLV, same difference. They got to win against Boise State, and then we'll see what happens in the American. Colorado at 20, remarkable season for Coach Prime and the Buffaloes, who went out on a high note, 52-0 against Oklahoma State. It's a good football team. They're probably going to play in the Alamo Bowl. Alamo Bowl would be stupid not to select them. They get picks from the Big 12, picks from the Pac-12, and they get to pick from teams that were in the Pac-12 last year, and Colorado satisfies both of those needs. It's just which one of these teams would you want to match up against them? Is it going to be Washington State? Is it going to be a team that hasn't played Colorado this year like BYU? I think it could be BYU, given all the circumstances. That could be a fun game. Illinois at 21, won 9 games for the first time since 2007. Great year for Brett Bielema. Gets that win against Michigan, too. Their only bad loss, I think, well, I don't think they really got a bad loss. I think they potentially have a pretty upsetting loss against Penn State, a team that they thought they could have got. Missouri gets to 9 wins. Eli Drinkwitz got that team going bowling for a 5th straight year. Pretty damn good season for them. Syracuse has the passing champion in Kyle McCord, who got a win against a number 6 Miami, while Ohio State got dumped on by unranked Michigan. Great for them. Army at number 24, they got to win. If they beat Tulane, they get to make an argument about getting into the college football playoff, and I think we would all be kind of excited to see what a service academy might look like, but the 5 seed probably is going to be even more excited. Memphis just lost the wrong games at the wrong time. That's it, man. That's a great football team that's just not going to have an opportunity to play in the college football playoff, but should get a decent bowl bid because it's a good football team. Rounding out the top 25, A&M got knocked out of the top 25 with this loss to Texas. A little bit harsh, but I get it. Louisville at 45, they beat up on Kentucky to finish 8-4. They got a win against Clemson. Feel good about that. Duke gets the 9 wins. That's back-to-back. That's first time since, I believe, 2015, that Duke has won 9 games or more in back-to-back seasons. Kansas State with the loss to Iowa State. Yeah, they're going to get out. Tulane's out with the loss to Memphis. LSU is out, even though they beat Oklahoma by 20 points. Louisiana, my goodness, they also have an argument to be in this Group of 5 competition. They can beat up on the Sun Belt challenger that is Marshall. Like, they'll be a 1-loss team, and they'll be looking around going, hey, where's our invitation to the college football playoff? Florida, remarkable season given the schedule that they faced was the toughest on paper going into this thing, and they got away from Billy Napier. He got it back in the second half. They beat a ranked Ole Miss. They beat Florida State, their rival. They're having a good time, man. That's a good football team next year. I expect them to be ranked in the top 25. We'll see what they do in the portal. Michigan gets a vote after beating up on Ohio State. And Baylor, who finished the season as the hottest team in the sport outside of Oregon. They won 6 in a row. Nobody wants to get that team in a bowl game. Let me know what you think about the top 25 in the comments below, and we'll see y'all a little bit later on.